Hi everyone, this is Alan Rosinski of Metro Manhattan Office Space. Good afternoon. A subscriber has recently asked for my opinion regarding the prospects of a recovery in the New York City retail commercial real estate market. It's a good time for an update on what has changed. To give you some background, before the pandemic, New York City's retail sector employed about 340,000 workers who were spread across 32,000 businesses, and it was a huge contributor to New York City's total economy. 1 out of 10 people with payroll jobs were working for the retail sector, and 22% of the total retail workforce consisted of younger individuals, often working at their very first job. From February to October of 2020, about 29,000 people lost their jobs in the retail sector, which consisted mostly of clothing stores and department stores to a smaller extent. Before the pandemic, 46% of retail jobs in all of New York City were concentrated in the borough of Manhattan. Many of those jobs were only available because of a large number of wealthy individuals who were able to support this local economy. After the pandemic hit, many of those people ended up escaping the city, which caused the Manhattan retail market to decline by 59% between February and June of 2020. I hope that you can feel some sympathy for people who have lost their jobs and businesses that were forced to close. Many people were able to successfully adapt to the changing landscape caused by the pandemic, but many others have suffered. It's important for the retail sector to come back in order to provide job opportunities for New Yorkers. This would also help reduce people's dependence on support from the government. The retail industry segments that have been most heavily impacted by the pandemic are clothing stores, general merchandise stores, which include things like sporting goods, furniture, and others, as well as retail stores such as consumer electronics stores. While restaurants are not technically a part of the retail sector from a commercial real estate perspective, they do occupy the same type of ground-level commercial space, and they greatly affect the popularity of nearby retail businesses. While the usage is different, the per square foot pricing is identical for restaurants and retail. That being said, when the market was stronger, landlords were getting key money as a component of restaurant deals. Key money is essentially a payment by the tenant for the fixtures and setup of a restaurant, including items such as the kitchen, stack, and seating. A survey by the New York City Hospitality Alliance found that 75% of restaurants and bars have seen their revenue fall by more than half in 2020 compared to 2019. All in all, about 40% of restaurant employees in New York City lost their jobs during the worst of the pandemic. It's common for people to enjoy eating at restaurants when shopping with their friends. If there are fewer places where they can eat, people lose some of their interest in going shopping, and this is especially true for neighborhoods which cater to upscale communities. Now, let's look at how the situation has changed today. Even during the peak of the pandemic, the retail sector has not been affected equally. Stores that were deemed essential, such as drug and grocery stores, have been able to maintain most of their workforce and have sales levels return to normal, or even higher by June of 2020. There was a change in people's spending habits, with restaurant expenses being replaced by grocery purchases. Consumer kitchen products such as food processors, ovens, blenders, and others have likewise seen a significant boost in online sales. What may surprise you is that while there has been a huge dip in overall retail sales between February and June of 2020, there has been a strong recovery since. In large part, this was due to the retail sector quickly adapting to new ways of moving their products, from greatly increased attention to online shopping to curbside pickup options, as well as better and faster home delivery services. Consumer spending has also correlated with people receiving their government stimulus checks. Overall spending in May of this year was 18% higher compared to pre-pandemic levels, and this trend could persist for some time as people shift their purchases to restaurants, lodging, and travel. While this information gives us a lot of hope, it's important to understand that it also distorts the picture that we see on the ground. The retail sector is doing well, but many small businesses were not able to keep up and ended up shutting down or leaving. You can see this by walking around and looking at empty storefronts throughout all of New York City. However, you could make the case the vacancy rates will drop sharply in the next few years, markets will adjust as they usually do, and reduced store rents will attract new and innovative retailers, resulting in leases being signed and the overall vacancy rate decreasing. Now, this isn't going to happen immediately. It's going to take several years. There are many factors that will determine what ultimately happens to the retail real estate market in New York City. Some of these include the return to the office for employees, recovery of international tourism, reduction in the crime rate, return and retention of high net worth individuals in New York City, and lastly, fiscal and monetary stimulus by the federal government and the condition of the overall economy. Now, even if all of these things happen, it may not be enough to jumpstart the retail real estate market. If that is indeed the case, you would think the government would have an interest in intervening to get these empty stores leased. Blocks and blocks of vacant shops and restaurants in and of themselves impede New York City's recovery. They create a sense of discomfort, blight, and insecurity. Vibrant retail stores and restaurants help encourage workers to return to their offices. All of these factors are connected. Now, let's talk about some advantages that new restaurant owners can make use of in the current market conditions. One advantage is that many of the restaurants that have closed their doors have left their spaces with all their key equipment and fixtures in good condition. This is very valuable for a new restaurant business because installing a new kitchen, seating, and a stack can cost hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars, which tenants have to pay for themselves. Landlords generally don't build out retail spaces. They offer free rent in lieu of construction. Since the retail vacancy rate is so high, there is an abundant choice of vacant stores, some of which are in very good condition. So tenants who are looking to acquire a store today might not have to spend as much money to build out a new space. Not only will they save on rent, but also on the cost to get their businesses operating. That being said, this benefit is somewhat balanced by the fact that construction costs are far higher than they were before March of 2020. If they need to build out a retail location, the cost of the build out is going to be a lot greater. So there is a real upside for a new business to lease a restaurant that closed in good condition and simply clean and redecorate as needed. Kitchen upgrades and other modifications can wait until the new business becomes established and profitable. Foot traffic in Manhattan stores appears to be greater than it has been at any point since February of 2020. There's a nostalgia for shopping, and surviving stores seem busier than stores before the pandemic. This is even more true for restaurants. The ones that survive seem to have their outdoor dining areas plus their interior seating largely booked. Now, since March of 2020, there has been a multitude of government aid programs supporting the financial market, a moratorium on evictions, the payroll protection program. So considering the importance of major urban areas to the health of the national economy, why not a government aid program designed to jumpstart the recovery of the retail real estate market? There are already specific government incentive programs in place that support the New York City commercial real estate market in targeted geographic areas. These programs are essentially real estate tax rebates for landlords that get credited to their tenants. Areas that are eligible include Lower Manhattan south of Canal Street, Brooklyn, certain areas of Queens, the Bronx, and Manhattan north of 96th Street. When these programs were established many years ago, the New York City and New York State governments had an incentive to strengthen the real estate market in these neighborhoods. The situation in New York City is worse today than it was when these programs were established. So you would think that government intervention is not out of the question in the not-so-distant future. I hope that you've enjoyed this look at the current state of the retail market sector. The signs of recovery are encouraging across the board, and while we will certainly experience some rough patches going forward, consumer confidence is strong, and there's an increasing availability of retail jobs for New Yorkers. Hopefully, enough office workers will resume working outside of their homes and contribute to the revitalization of local retail businesses in New York City. If you have stories or experiences of your own, whether with a retail job, a restaurant, or any other related sector, please feel free to share your comments below. If you found this content interesting or helpful, I'd be happy if you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You can always find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @MetroManhattan. Until the next time.